Brian, catch up. We haven't spoken for a little while, and the first bit of news was the travellers visiting the training ground.
Yeah, we got word that they were potentially on the move again from elsewhere in Shrewsbury, so obviously we're careful of the stadium. Unfortunately, the night in question that they did move on, somehow the gates got burst open, and we found in the morning, we discovered the tradesmen who were working at the training ground discovered 13 caravans and obviously cars with the travellers. So obviously, as we've done before, we got a bailiff out, and with the way a common law 24-hour notice was served on them. And to be fair, they went away. Most of them were away by 2 o'clock the following day. With just a couple of them left. They left it before 5 o'clock, so that was within their period that we're supposed to be away, and they actually tidied up after them as well, which was quite unusual too. They tidied up the litter.
I suppose as well, a few people have been sort of critical about the gates at the training ground, but as the ongoing work goes, there's had to be a few little modifications.
Yeah, we do have one of the gates still standing, and we had Harris fencing across it, which had been padlocked across, but unfortunately the night in question, somehow miraculously the gate got burst open, and whoever burst through those gates, and obviously ended up on the pitches. But yeah, the guys are in and out all the time, so they know the padlocks and how to get in because they're in early in the morning. It was just unfortunate, but to be fair, they left in a reasonable state.
Other things as well, the community pitch is back in front of the council next week with planning, so a bit of an update on that.
Well, we're fingers and toes crossed, 33rd time lucky. Hopefully we've covered absolutely every single base this time. Part of the thing with the Sport England thing before was about loss of a sports pitch, which we always felt everything that we'd put forward to mitigate that through the planning legislation was that obviously they were providing a better community pitch for them with the pitches that were being created at Sundorn as well for the first team. There was an improvement in pitches and quality, which would normally mitigate it, and obviously the previous twice it's been up before committee, that's the planning officers have supported that mitigation. But we felt, to rather than cover it, Sport England have got a thing saying it's 65,000 for the loss of a sports pitch, to cover it. So just to cover all the bases, we've offered the 65,000 to try and get this over the line. Obviously Lidl are getting quite frustrated just now with the delays, but I think we're all hopeful that, as we have been before, that maybe it is third time lucky, and hopefully we can get it over the line, and Lidl can start their work as soon as possible, because obviously time is of the essence too, to hopefully for them to do the works around, especially around the gates, over the close season, which is only 3 weeks away now. So it's important that we get this up and running, obviously provide a facility for the community at the existing first team training pitch.
One thing that fans seem to be getting confused about is we've spoken about a possible 3G pitch, but from the start of it, it'll be carrying on as a grass pitch.
The plan was always to have it as a grass pitch, but what we were showing in our submissions before was that there was the potential going forward for it to become a 3G pitch or artificial pitch. I think initially we want to see how that develops, and obviously Jamie and his team would be running it. It would be an arm's length approach, which again was to try and take it away from the club, so it was totally transparent. The Shrewsbury Town, the community, is a registered charity. It's at arm's length from the club. The trustees are all from various walks of life, and nothing to do with the football club. So by giving them the long-term peppercorn rent lease, it was transparent and for them to run it. If they decide in time that they would like to make it a 3G pitch, and it would be beneficial to their community activities and to the local people of Shropshire, then they would then take steps from their own end to work with us to make sure that changed. But at the moment it's always going to be a grass pitch.
Season tickets as well been on sale for a month and a bit, and hit a good number.
Yeah, we hit overnight last night. We were over the 1,000 mark, which was pleasing. Obviously we need to continue to get the message out, and I would obviously urge all supporters to pass on the message to others who maybe don't read the website or that the deadline won't be extended. The deadline we have extended to the 15th when we put out the deadlines in the first place, to accommodate people who get paid on the 15th of the month. So next Saturday the 15th will be the deadline. We will be open, I think it's 9 till 12 next Saturday morning, which is the day after the Walsall game, but thereafter there will be no further extension of the deadline. we think we've always said that a deadline should be there and is there for a reason. I just don't get the whole thing of the past of always extending it, because it gives people a false idea of why should I buy my season ticket in the first week if the deadline's going to be extended. So hopefully everybody, if we can get that message out to as many people as possible so they realise that there will be no extension to the deadline. Obviously we're pleased that we've gone over the 1,000 last night. People obviously realise that it is good value for money, and even I realise it can be quite a hit in the £295 or whatever one it is, but obviously with under 8 still free, the child prices are still a good price, the concession prices, and if people can still have the option to pay it up over 10 monthly instalments, they can do that online, or they can do that through the ticket office. So there are options there to take advantage of the roughly £12 a game for an adult.
Training ground as well. Any update on the work up there?
Yeah, work's continuing. The joiners and the electricians have been in for the last 2 weeks, just putting all the partition walls up. Obviously we've had the inspectors out as well, just to make sure that we're comfortable with, they're comfortable with the building, they're meeting building standards for everything we're doing. But work's ongoing. It's starting to take some shape. Obviously it'll take time, but it's nice to see that the rooms are now formed, and you can get a vision of what it's going to look like when it's all finished.
One of the online rumours was the Travellers have done many bits of damage to the area, which isn't true. No,
we've been, if I'm honest, we're actually quite fortunate that the big concern we had was, what damage of having invested the money we have on the training pitches out at Sundorn, what damage the tyres and the caravans would have potentially have done. But I think we've been very fortunate that there is very, very minimal damage, very, very minimal damage. They actually positioned themselves on the right hand side of beside Ray Valley Tractors over to that side of the pitches. There are a couple of very small scorch marks, and some tyre marks. But having been out there yesterday with Dave Saltman and his staff, I think we're all pleased to see that there's no long-term damage and it is very minimal. They'll do some verti-draining on the pitch and cut it again in the next few days, and hopefully by that time even the tyre marks that were there, which only because the grass was slightly damp still, they'll no longer be there.
With Greenhouse moving on, is the shirt and stadium sponsorship still up for grabs? Any update on that?
Still ongoing, to be honest with you. We're speaking to a number of parties just now about the options. We're also considering whether we split the home and away shirts into two and have a home shirt sponsor and away shirt sponsor, and obviously the stadium, there's been a number of meetings taking place with various parties. Nobody's pulled out as yet, despite the rumours that you were telling me about. So no, we're still speaking to a number of parties, and obviously we're keen to get it over the line as soon as possible, for everybody's sake.
Couple of EFL bits of news. The first one about the homegrown club developed players needed in the squads for next season.
Yeah, the first one, homegrown players, which is obviously, I think, are British based players. It shouldn't actually affect us in any way. It hasn't affected us. They've increased it from 6 to 7. If you look at the stats for ourselves for this season and last season, we've been well above that, so we shouldn't have any impact on that. But obviously from a PR point of view, it shows that the EFL clubs are still promoting British based players, which is good. The club developed players is one that we actually voted against. Paul and I spoke about it, that our concerns were that you now have to, from next season, not next season, the season after, 18-19, you have to have one player who's club developed within your 18. I think our concern, Paul and I both shared the same concern, in that it might potentially impact on the number of players that we could go out and play on loan. I think a young player should always play as many games as they possibly can in competitive football. So I would have concerns, not just for us, but for any club, that perhaps any manager of any club will hold 2 or 3 players because they need to fulfil that. And if they don't have a club developed player, you can only have 6 substitutes as opposed to 7. So I was just concerned that the impact that might have on players going out on loan, because I think for the good of the game, I think it's really important that young players play first team football somewhere, and obviously we've got a number of them out on loan just now, who might not have been on loan if we had to fulfil that rule.
The other one as well is the Checker Trade meeting next week, where they'll look to see how the competition develops next season again.
Yeah.
internally, I think the playing side of it are quite happy with it. The youth academy are quite happy with the overall thought of it, but
Yeah.
as a club.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. The EFL asked all the clubs for feedback on this season's competitions, which obviously we'd passed on. Myself, Paul and I put stuff together for the EFL and our thoughts, whether it was a playing side or whether it was the logistical side of travelling to Middlesbrough and Scunthorpe in a regionalised competition, which I've said before. So, you know, there was a few issues. I think it'll be interesting to see what other clubs' feedback was. I think the competition does need something. I think it over the years it's never had the best reputation, but then you look at the final last weekend, you see 74,000 people at Wembley and Coventry taking 40,000 fans to a final. There is room for having a competition like that. I think definitely for excuse me, for League One and League Two clubs, but it's obviously just trying to get the right format that suits everybody. I mean, Paul was concerned about the whole rule about having to play so many players from the first team from the previous Saturday, which obviously if you've got a few injuries from the Saturday game and it's a midweek game, then it means you've got to play the rest of the team kind of thing, which is a bit restricting at times. And I think there's an opportunity for maybe even some of the younger players to play in that competition without affecting them going out on loan at the same time, which is again part of the development.
Finally as well, hospitality, a couple of changes, new chef comes in and James moving on.
Yeah, James, he's been here for a year and a half now. He's taken on he wants to get a different experience. He's got a position in a local hotel. So I mean, James has worked hard and good luck to him in his new role. We have filled the role and we're hoping to have a new appointment next week. So who'll work with James and Terry obviously as well through next week and as a handover period as well. So we wish James all good luck in his future. And I think he's even through his notice period, he's worked really hard to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as it can do. But onwards and upwards as always.